Hello, friends, and welcome to the next episode of my podcast Detox. Today with Dr. Canca.
Correct.
Wonderful. Dr. Canca is a moral and political philosopher. She is director of AI Ethics Lab
Yes.
and researcher at many universities, and you work even with WHO.
Yes, I did.
So, and we are going to discuss the crucial topic for today's era, and that's AI ethics.
Thank you for having me. Your listeners may wonder why I said correct when you said Dr. Canca, because everyone gets my name wrong, and you got it right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So, my first question is that, we live in a world that is using AI massively at workspace, almost everywhere, and we have so many new innovations in the field of AI. So, is it a positive thing or negative or both?
Both. I think it's always both. For any new technology that we have, any change in the society, well, maybe not any change, but most changes, they happen because there's a lot that it adds. We get the cars. We think that's great. Now we have a longer span. Now we can go to more places. We have the planes and the typewriter and then the newspaper and all of these things. Of course, they all add, but we also realize that cars means car accidents. The newspaper means propaganda. So things come with their potential downsides. And
Right.
same thing with AI. AI is a little bigger, little newer, little more.
And maybe a little bit more difficult to predict what can happen when we reach the tipping point.
Absolutely. AI's potential is different than the other, most of the other tools that we have. In that sense, you're right. It is less predictable. But in the end, we develop these tools because we develop the AI systems because we think they are going to add to the society, add to our world. And we also realize that, oh God, they also bring a ton of risks and we got to be careful.
Yes. So, for example, for cars, we have airbags, we have good brakes.
Yeah.
But with AI, honestly speaking, all the big players, they are pumping endless money into those generative models. And we are recording this podcast in the week that Donald Trump just announced $500 billion investment. And I'm a little bit scared because I think that they are pushing those technologies faster and faster.
Yeah.
And do we have enough brakes?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not, right?
I think the answer is definitely no. And I would say a way of thinking about, in terms of analogy with cars, a way of thinking about this is think about how many things there are to control a safe travel.
Yes.
Not just the airbag, not just the seatbelt, but you also have better roads. You have the traffic lights, you have the police, you have the traffic law.
And some standardized tests.
Exactly, tests and crash test dummies, all of these things, right? So you have inside the car, around the car, in the infrastructure, in the legal system, methods, safeguards, structures in place. And with AI, we are doing a little bit of all, but none of these are yet connected to each other to create a safe ecosystem. And there's always a pushback because if you leave it totally to the capitalist market dynamics, we know that things are going to go badly for the majority of the world.
By the way, it happened with social media platforms.
Absolutely.
And we were unable to regulate them.
Yeah.
And now we have even stronger technology, and we are heading to the similar situation.
Yes, and depending on how the political structure and public feelings go, it looks like we are going back towards the social media's early days, unfortunately. So,
and it was a kind of painful experience. And now we have a lot of data that, for example, misinformation is spread on social media much quicker than the fact-based stories. And especially with AI-made misinformation and personalized, let's say, political propaganda and everything like that, I think that we should act kind of quickly on that.
Absolutely. Maybe the way to think about it is not just the why does political structure matter? Why does the political propaganda matter? Because I think the way we should think about it is like for any decision that is important for our lives, we rely on information. And we think that we are making personal decisions. We are making autonomous decisions. I'm using my own agency. But if the information that I rely on is manipulated, then my agency is manipulated.
Yes.
So it's not just the politics. The exact same story is relevant for your health decisions,
right,
for your which education, which jobs you're going to look for. AI systems are very good in the way that we are using the AI systems, and then the way that we integrate the AI systems into our world is very good to define what we see and what we don't see in the world.
Right.
Because we are think about it, every day, what you know about the world is somehow mediated through AI. You look at the news, you look at social media, you search for jobs, you search for opportunities. Everything is ranked and ordered. Where you're going to eat, what movie you're going to see, right? Like everything is ranked and ordered. So certain things you never see. And that is where the agency, individual thinking question lies. And that I think is, we all think is extremely important. And that requires putting in place systems.
I love the term epistemic crisis. It's more and more difficult to find, let's say, common ground for discussions around health, politics, or whatever else domain. And especially with AI-generated misinformation videos, deepfake videos, and whatever, it will be even more difficult to find let's say, the real truth somewhere outside.
Yeah. We are creating a very uncertain landscape to figure out what is truthful. So as soon as you have that, of course, the clashes between opinions become clashes between what do you believe in, what is the source of authority for truthfulness, like how do you fact check something? And that makes it very difficult for us even to talk to each other at this point.
Right. And do you think that AI can play even some good role in terms of AI fact checking, or do you think that AI can somehow improve our critical thinking, for example, at schools, or that we can build some tools that can help people to recognize what to trust?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of AI. So
me too.
Exactly, like I work on the AI ethics and AI governance because I really think that AI has a huge potential for everything. I mean, let's put it this way: I'm an ethicist, I'm a philosopher, and I think that starts with recognizing our world is extremely unfair and extremely ethically problematic. So let's not romanticize and glorify the human behavior at all. We messed it up. Like
in whatever country.
In whatever country, exactly. Like we collectively messed it up and got ourselves into this situation. So now thinking about AI is like it in some sense it is another in our chain of mess ups. It's another one because we are bringing even more risk and problems to ourselves. But in the chain of human progress as well, it's another one. Of course, AI is a great tool to, just look at the large language models, LLMs, for brainstorming, for thinking, for asking questions, just to have like something to talk to you patiently, explain to you patiently, whatever question you're asking. It's fantastic. And there are many different uses of how we can make use of AI to fight the risks of AI. But one thing we have to recognize is that this is neither a natural trajectory of the AI system, nor the natural trajectory of the capitalist system. So like we have to intervene, both with the AI and with the incentives that humans have as they use and build and use AI systems. Only then we can say, okay, maybe it will work out.
And I'm using ChatGPT to uncover my own biases. So my favorite prompt is something like, oh, you are a professor on moral philosophy and you are expert on critical thinking, and ask me questions that can help me to uncover my own biases.
Fantastic.
And there are some new scientific papers around the ability to use AI to help people to uncover their misbeliefs.
Yeah.
So I'm optimistic.
Yeah.
But as you mentioned, like we have to do something on our side too.
Yeah.
So
I guess I always hear the distinction between are you a pessimist, are you an optimist? I think there's a very obvious answer to this, right? Like just be a realist about this. You don't need to be optimistic or pessimistic. Let's just be a realist. Let's understand the upsides and the downsides and just act accordingly, figure out a way forward. It's like
Right.
a giant puzzle that we are facing with, and let's try to solve it.
Well, maybe let's dive into some concrete problems. Like, let's say we
And
have
I'll
like,
solve them in the podcast.
yes, please,
completely.
please.
Of course, like
So we have like problems that are already here. For example, AI generated scams. So you can now use AI to generate like almost perfect voice, almost perfect videos. And of course, those scammers are using AI to manipulate people, to give them their IDs or a bank account PIN codes or whatever. So what do you think, like how we can fight back to this maybe already happening crisis in cybersecurity?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is one of those cases where AI's main function is to make the scam, make the problem just basically larger and more efficient in the bad way this time, right? So the problem itself is not really novel, but the scale of it is harder to deal with. And then you can discuss, like, now we can think about, okay, how did we fight against this before? I mean, the simple things is education, being mindful, having like clean cyber behavior, you know, checking your sources and so on. There will always be some who fell prey to the scams. And for that, then we can talk about, well, what is the use of AI in law enforcement, for example? Can we use the AI systems to detect these scams faster, figure out which networks of calls stem from a single source, for example, and so those type of things. So like, I don't know if there is like a, how do I say this, like a novel ethical question here. It's much more about implementation question, right?
Yeah, I had wonderful conversation with Jeremy Howard, that is also AI expert from the US, and he said something like that it's much easier to build AI system for scanning compared to AI system for recognizing scams. Like it's much more difficult to spot what is fake or what is AI generated or what is misinformation or manipulation.
Yeah, I know I keep saying like this is similar to this is similar to this, but it's like, think about other ways that we are trying to always catch up with something that is not desirable. Like, totally random, but doping is a similar question, right? Like, it's always harder to figure out how to test for doping, test for the new doping mechanisms, while the others are finding novel ways of doping, right?
Yeah.
So trying to catch up, trying to sort of like find the novelty that is budding everywhere. And that's another thing about AI systems, right? Like, it is in a way accessible. You can create an AI system from your bedroom. So it is very accessible. There are different ways that around the world you have different agents building malicious systems. So fighting them is harder. It is more decentralized.
Right.
So
and it's
easier
than ever.
Yes, it's easier than ever. So yes, there are problems. There will be problems. We will fight them through education on the one hand, and through scanning and using it in collaboration.
Yeah.
But that's
I love the education part. That's what I'm also trying to do, to show people those scams and fake videos, and to, let's say, prepare them on what is coming. And what happened to us in our company, like our CFO, she got a fake invoice. And it was like obvious fake. So she called me and asked me, Peter, is this real invoice? I was like, I don't have any clue on what is happening, so probably not. But I can imagine that if they improve the way of scamming, and if they call her from my number and use my voice to tell her, oh, this is like real invoice, please put it in a bank. I believe that even like me and my colleagues could become like victims of those perfect scams. So even though if you are in the field, you are still in the situation that you can be scammed.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's very scary.
It is very scary. I know. I mean, that is true. Like we used to have evidence that we trust, right? Like we used to say, okay, like show me the video. If I see the video, I believe it. Show me the picture. If I see the picture, I'll believe it. Or let me talk to him or her, then I'll believe it. So what you're saying is absolutely correct. Like we are losing credibility of this evidence, these types of evidence. Then the question becomes like, how do we make sure that we still have some sort of grasp of what is evidential, and check for those that are faked?
Yeah, maybe like if you take a picture, you put a key on a blockchain to in the future to somehow like recognize if it was like real picture or things like that, or put there some signs of authenticity. But it's difficult, because you can make AI to fake those signatures.
I mean, that's why we have a whole field of cybersecurity dealing with these questions. So I'm going to defer to them for the creative ways of finding solutions.
Okay, maybe like midterm problems. Let's discuss a few of them. Like I love the work from Yuval Noah Harari. He just published a new book, Nexus, and he's describing the growing problem of what he refers to be useless class, a group of people that will probably lose their jobs because of AI. And when AI is faster, cheaper, and better than those humans, they will have like serious problems at the workspace. So what do you think about this problem? Like how to help people to stay relevant in the upcoming era?
Yeah. Well, first of all, interesting choice of characterization, use this class, like the title. But the question about, AI and the future of work is an interesting question, but also I feel like we often approach this question from our very industrialized mindset. We were not always obviously, like historians like Harari is the best suited to make these cases, but we have not been always these almost like caged chickens working for a set goal in industrial light within stories of buildings, going there before the light comes up and leaving after the light goes off, right? So the way that we look at our purpose has already shifted to such a degree that we seem to be unable to think about, like, what does a life's purpose mean? It seems to be connected to how many numbers you put into your Excel sheet for whatever the goal is.
Yes.
So I don't think we should be starting from there to start with. I think we should be thinking about, and the difficulty is about shifting gears and start from somewhere is, of course, again, I'm going to go back to the capitalist world. Not that I'm against it, but there are restrictions within the capitalist world. Like, we are not allowed to completely shift our social mindset, right? Because society is structured in such a way that we are valued as humans according to our productivity. For whatever the goal is. Again, like, it doesn't even have to be the productivity that suits the society's
especially companies
purpose.
that are on a stock exchange. Their like goal is to grow.
Exactly.
And
and you might be so
that's it.
like on the human level, you are almost told to be so valuable because you're a CEO of a soda company, which does really no good to the world. So it is a very bizarre way of thinking.
Right. Yeah.
So I think when we think about AI and the future of work, or the classes, the question should be, okay, so how do we imagine a world where, if we could imagine, a lot of the work is done by something else, like an AI system, and somehow the benefits can be distributed in a different way, not in a billionaire way, like not 5 billionaires taking everything, but distributed. Then what would that mean for social classes, and how would we classify groups?
Yeah.
And that is a completely different question than asking what is useful. And I'm not sure what that usefulness or uselessness even mean. Like, what is the social goal that we are trying to reach? Because if we have, when you look at the societies that prosper, usually the point that they get is what matters is art and literature and philosophy. So, and sciences, just thinking about sciences for the sake of core sciences, fundamental sciences, right? Just to understand the world. And in that sense, what would it mean to be useless? Because, how do you even know who is, from looking at it from now, how do you know who is the artist? Most people don't even have the opportunity to be an artist.
I truly enjoyed your answer because, by the way, you don't know, but the core chapter of my new book is about purpose at work in the era of AI. And it starts with the sentence that we have to completely rethink what purpose means. So, and I think that, like, we can build much better society. And as you mentioned, AI can do all the repetitive work around, and we can truly focus on what is important, meaningful to us.
Yeah.
And I think that purpose is mostly about serving others, to build something valuable, and not just to grow endlessly like those companies at the stock exchange. So I think like purpose is the crucial part of solving this problem.
Yeah. And again, just for disclosure, I have not read Harari's book, so I don't know what the context that the useless class was being told at. And I mean, what you say is, I totally agree. Like, we can create a different social structure, but will we? Are we likely to? My guess is no, we are not likely to. Like, it would take massive effort, collective effort, to say, let's change from this to a different social structure, because the incentives are not aligned in that way. The incentives are not aligned for the masses of the world population. The incentives are strategically aligned for the few.
And especially after the election in the US and the growing influence of those billionaires on politics, I think it will be super difficult to find some ethical solutions, because obviously their motivation, it's not always ethical. Maybe there are some good guys too. I don't want to judge them, but like, I think that, for example, like OpenAI, they are doing great job in terms of innovation, but I know that a lot of their experts on ethics and safety, they left because they were scared of the pace of growth. So, and this doesn't make me calm at all.
It shouldn't. I think, when I refer to capitalist society, by the way, I do think that market structure is so versatile and so dynamic that I'm not against the market structure. Market structure can be beautifully used and help to change the incentives, build the incentives in a much more dynamic and purposeful manner. It's just that when I talk about the capitalist society, what I refer to is like sort of like this hands-off. Let the winner
free
win.
For all capitalism.
Exactly. So I think there's a distinction between the extreme and understanding the dynamics of market and purposefully structuring it in such a way, purposefully structuring our goals in such a way that the market serves that purpose.
I think that this is the only way on how to survive on this planet. And I feel that there is a difference between EU, because I live in EU, so I know some details about the AI Act and how they are thinking about regulating AI. So what do you think about some meaningful regulations?
So regulation is a tricky question, and I don't actually feel very well situated to discuss that, in the sense that, so before I worked on AI, I'm a philosopher. I come from applied ethics, broadly speaking. So right now I'm working on the ethics of technology and ethics of AI. Before, I used to work on ethics and health. I mean, I basically like life and death related to situations.
Lovely.
Like high stakes, high payoff. And I used to work a lot in the area of health policy. When I moved to AI, I stopped working on the policy question, because one thing that I find very difficult as a non-lawyer and non-policy person, expert, is that finding that real nuance on what you want from law is to be minimalist in its intervention, because once you have a legal rule out there, it's extremely difficult to get rid of it, even if you realize that it's not serving the best purpose, and it gets cluttered very quickly. And I know this from the healthcare system.
Right.
So with AI, anything that we suggest to become a law, I think it's so important to make sure that we keep it crisp and clean and concise, and just regulate enough to make sure that we limit and eliminate the worst case scenarios and provide incentive for the better. But I'm always worried about adding too many cluttery regulations. But of course, like, you can't do so this is one hand, but on the other hand, of course, you cannot do ethics without some incentive, and the incentive often comes from regulation. So like, nobody comes to us and say, I mean, okay, very few, not nobody, but like very few come to us and say, I just want to be ethically like in the right place. Most of the time they are like, where should we be in terms of where the policy is going and where the market is going? And you have to make your ethics argument in relation to market and in relation to policy. So it's very important where these two are going so that we can push for the right ethics. So I rely on policy. I rely on my colleagues who are working endlessly on putting on just the right measures around policy. But I'm not an expert in the policy part.
Okay, but I was watching just recently your TEDx talk, and you mentioned there a beautiful term, ethics washing.
Yeah.
Can you please describe for our listeners what it means and why ethics washing is not the solution?
Yeah, so it basically is, what it means to say is like, we love talking about ethics. Everyone loves talking about ethics just to look like they are doing ethics. But most of the time, it's just on the surface. Nothing really happens in the background, right? So you would hear companies going like, we have principles. Like, we are going to be transparent. We are going to protect privacy. And then you look at, okay, show me exactly how you operationalize it. And then we're like, everyone knows our principles. Like, all of our workers know our principles. I'm like, okay, but like, show me how they are operationalizing it. Because all of your employees have so many different goals to hit. Unless this is a goal that is operationalized within the company, you're not going to hit that.
Yeah.
It's just for the good of your, consciousness in that. Conscious in that case. So that's not what we want. What we want is the ethical goals, ethical purposes, to turn into action items and goals.
Right.
That's what we want.
So it's similar to like greenwashing.
Yes.
And is there any like good example of company or organization that has like good ethics KPIs for their employees? And
I mean, let me not go into that. I mean, yes, the quick answer is yes. There are companies that are doing way better than the others. And of course, I know the ones that I'm working with, and I know their KPIs. But I don't want to, with our work, with the NDAs and everything, it's always better to not name names.
Okay, but are there any players? Very few. Okay, that was the question.
Very few, because so here's the thing. You will find many companies in a very small subset, they have it all, like a very small group within the company, like an innovation team, a product team will have it all beautifully written down, and they would know exactly what to do. But that is not sufficient. When we talk about a company really bringing ethics into their KPIs, we want to see it within the whole organization.
Right, yeah.
So it has to come from the executive level, and it has to be internalized by any developer, any designer in the company. So once you have that, then I can say, yeah, they have it right.
Yeah. So,
and that is so rare.
Yeah, I definitely agree that sometimes like those sentences are just empty phrases. Yes. Sometimes they put those phrases on walls everywhere, but no one actually believes in that.
Yeah.
So it has to start with the managing team and with the top level.
Yeah.
And
that's the reason. Like, we do executive education, and that is really the main reason why I created an executive education and responsible AI, because we can work as much as we want with the developer teams, with the innovation teams. What happens is that without the real executive endorsement, it always will fall apart at some point. What we want is the executives to understand responsible AI and AI ethics as a business risk if they don't do it.
Okay.
So it is there because in the end, in AI ethics, people love talking about trust, trustworthy AI, trust in AI. I don't like talking about this because I think trust is an outcome. We shouldn't be gearing towards it. We should be doing everything right so that trust happens by the end of it. But in the end, that is a tangible result. If you lose the customer trust, you're going to have a problem, especially in a world where the customer data means so much for your AI functions. If the customers think that you're not the one that we want to share our data with, we rather share it with another group, well, that is a problem. And that should factor in as a business risk.
So basically, you try to sell them ethics as a part of their, let's say, safety for the future of their income.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. I mean, it is a...
So basically selfish motivation on being selfless a little bit.
Yes. And we know this because unfortunately, unfortunately, you cannot rely on individuals or companies' ethical feelings.
That's so sad.
I know, but it is the truth.
Yeah, I truly believe that there are some leaders that they have very strong values. They truly want to change the world in a positive manner. But as you mentioned, like, maybe it's a minority, and we need to solve it for.
Yeah, and also like let's give it a little let's give love a little love towards the leaders as well. Yes, some of them are absolutely committed, but being a committed leader in a marketplace where there are no incentives attached to this is also difficult, because you have to talk to your shareholders, you have to talk to your stakeholders,
have to deliver.
You have to deliver, and so it is not. I wouldn't want to say it like, oh, they just don't care. It's just that we've set up a playground that doesn't allow you to be consistently putting a lot of weight on ethics.
Okay.
And we need to make the adjustments on that playground to make sure that the AI systems that we are creating and incorporating into our workings, into our society, will serve everyone in the end, including businesses. And another thing that I always tell the companies is like, if you go out of business, or if you lose your competition and you are like one of the smaller companies, you're not that effective, not that impactful. So you're also not that impactful in terms of ethics. I want you to thrive. I want you to be like one of the top companies.
Okay.
And I want you to be ethical at the same time. Like just being there or like ready to be bankrupt is not useful.
Right. Yeah. So I'm an entrepreneur, so I know how difficult it is to balance like doing meaningful things and still have money for paycheck. So and usually like you have to do some let's say you have to find a middle road in many domains. So now I want to discuss something, let's say, in the long term, and that's the AI alignment. How to build safe future, let's say, AGI, whatever it means, like the super intelligent. So how to build some boundaries for the future system that will be smarter than us in all domains. So how to set boundaries for the entity that will be much smarter.
Are you asking me to answer this like $1 million question right now?
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, that's why we have.
And please put it in one sentence.
Exactly. That's why we have centers and institutes just built around us, and people are working endlessly. I mean, that is really $1 million question, right? Like, we realize that we are building systems which has capabilities. Was the wrong way to go. Which has capabilities that we want those capabilities to be complex and. Okay, let me restart this. So, the whole point about building an AI system is we are trying to create something that is able to deal with the complexity of the world in a way that we are unable to deal with, because our brains are, limited. And of course, AI is limited too, but we are trying to expand this.
Right,
in a way, expand our brain capacity using this tool that is expanding and is better in dealing with, like, let's say, multiple variables or calculations or predictions, all of these things, right? So the goal is to have it as complex. If it is not complex, then I may as well do it myself. Like, what's the point of creating an AI system? Which is, incidentally, a question that all the companies should ask as they integrate an AI system. Don't just add AI for the sake of saying we are an AI-forward company, because if you can do it without
That's
AI,
AI
you should
washing.
do it. Yes, exactly. You should do it without AI. At least you understand what's going wrong and what's going right. But once you have a good reason to use AI and to build AI, and we do have those good reasons, and that's why the AI has been adding to so much progress in drug discovery, in healthcare, and all of these areas.
Even math.
Yes. Now the question becomes, okay, but how can we make sure that it still serves the right purpose and it still does things that are, it still does its tasks in a way that's the way that we intended it to do. And this question balloons as the AI's capability increases. And we are not there yet for the artificial general intelligence or super intelligence. But if and when we get there, this question will become massive, because the idea with AGI or super intelligence is that once it's there, we will not be able to control it anymore.
Right, yeah.
So before it gets there, we want to be able to say, okay, we have all the safeguards, all the right way of thinking put in place in the system, so that once we cannot control, we still can rely on it, that it's not going to absolutely annihilate us. it's a difficult question, and I don't think we have a good answer about that yet.
And it's maybe impossible.
It might be impossible. And another thing to think about is that how do we even, what even is the exact goal? Because we as a species, we've been prioritizing ourselves. We've been saying humans above everything. Hence the destruction that we did on the environment and the animals on the planet, right? So do we still want this? Like, do we still want AI to say humans above everything else? Or is the ethical approach to the planet, to the world, is, well, humans in their right place, just like any other sentient thing in their right place? If AI completely mimics us, it will say AI over everything else, right? It just like we did.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if it does that, we're in trouble.
Wow. Yeah. And I think that, like, for us, like, and also Harari is talking about that in his first book, *Sapiens*. Wherever mankind came, the other species started to decline. So from very, let's say, interesting perspective, we are the virus on this planet.
Absolutely.
And AI can realize that, and AI can make a decision, like, not to focus just on our well-being, and it can focus on well-being of other species, and then we have a serious problem.
Yes, and I mean, we use these terms like human-centered AI very conveniently.
Yes.
But it is a real ethical, philosophical question. Should AI be human-centered? What does it mean to be human-centered? I mean, surely we don't want AI to be AI-centered. That is not a good direction. Although, I mean, if we want to go all the way philosophical, we could say, if AI acquires mind, then, well, let's not get there. But, like, we can imagine a scenario where philosophy of mind discusses this a lot. If AI has sentience, then if AI ever has sentience, then we could say, well, why should it not prioritize itself rather than us? But of course, this is taking us to a very, very, very philosophical and very...
And that's what I enjoy in this podcast. That's why the podcast is called Deep Talk. So we are getting deeper.
All right, then in the philosophy of mind, you can make the argument that we don't know at what point an AI system is... actually, let me put it this way. We don't know at what point the mind, human mind, the human brain, the physical organ, starts creating mental experiences.
Yes.
So because we don't know that, it's also hard to say that, well, when will an AI mind, a non-organic mind, will be able to create mental experiences? And once it starts creating mental experiences, and of course, like, not just that, but we can start talking about, well, what is the difference? What's the difference in moral standing? Why should you treat me well, but play with the code of the AI system? What does it mean to play with the code of the AI system? Does it now become our slaves because we can just change it? So we can talk about all of those things as a potential far-off possibility of the AI, a world with super intelligent or AI with general intelligence, or AI with moral capacities. So that's sort of like taking it to the further end. But we don't need to go there when we are asking the question, a capable AI, just a machine, forget about it, just like no mind, nothing, just a machine, just an efficient machine. How should it, if it can structure the world, how should it structure the world? How should it treat humans? Should humans always be the priority what is the, like, how many species should be extinct, let's say, just for me to not injure my finger?
Yes.
Like, am I that important? Or how many fingers?
Wow.
Right? Like,
those are moral dilemmas.
Yeah, those are moral dilemmas. And normally these are just like the fun conversations that philosophers have. But
that's what I also enjoy.
But as you have AI systems that start making connected decisions, these are becoming less and less hypotheticals. Like, surprisingly less and less hypothetical.
I truly love all the conversation about consciousness. So let's say one human neuron.
Yeah.
Definitely not conscious. Definitely not intelligent that much. Then you have hundreds, still not conscious, but then you have billions, and somehow on a way it emerges. So do you think that if we build the same complexity in a non-biological device, do you think that we reach the similar consciousness in machines?
Yeah, I mean, I think a way of the answer, like the simple answer is yes. I do think so, but I would say it a little differently. I would say there is no reason to think that we won't reach consciousness, unless it is exactly like human mind, right? It's reasonable to think that there are different ways of getting to the consciousness, and that might include being non-organic. That might include more complexity, less complexity. I'm not sure even it has to be as complex. I don't know. As you said, we don't know at what point the emergent property comes out, right? Like, because we don't know that. It's not exactly exact analogy at all. But for example, large language models was really surprising for all of us, right? Because we realized that by having access to that much quantity of language, systems started making claims that are very much as if they have the mental model of the world. But we didn't initially think that just by language you could get to a mental model. So it was an interesting thing to see that, actually, massive amounts of language gets you a level of understanding that we didn't think that was possible just through language. Similarly, I think there might be ways that we think consciousness requires particular types of complexity and particular properties, and we may come to realize it actually does not. So because the consciousness itself is so hard to define and decipher, it's very difficult to say when another system achieves that. And because we have the division of minds, I never know whether you really
I was about to ask how can I know that you are conscious, right? So
exactly, since I cannot even know that you have the consciousness, how should I know whether my large language model
maybe everyone is just faking to be conscious?
I mean, these are the debates that philosophy of mind had like for such a long time now, and
now it will definitely have a real impact in the real world, because I was listening to Sam Altman's interview just recently in December, and he was telling something that AGI is coming in 2025. So I'm not sure whether to trust him, but probably we are heading there. And all those prediction markets, they estimate like 50% in this year we are heading to AGI. So it's not just Altman's opinion. We are heading there. And we are not ready. So what individuals can do to help this big problem? Because I think that I call this highway to the hell. So it's so quick, and we don't have those brakes. So what can I do to? Should I call my favorite politicians? Should I don't know, take a chain and put myself to doors to OpenAI or what should I do? Like, because I'm a little bit scared. I'm very optimistic in my personal life, but like, let's say a little bit pessimistic about the future of mankind. So what can I do?
Individually, it's very difficult. I totally agree with the way that you did describe the situation. So a lot of my talks somehow end with like saying, "Don't forget to what," but that is really one of those situations. Like, in the end, our individual capability really lies in our collective action. So voting, your political presence is one of them. Making sure that you have the right political agents making decisions, which is around the world a huge problem. So it's not very optimistic in that sense, but making sure that we have right political agencies, it's important. The other thing is, of course, you can say voting with your purchases. So as a consumer, what choices you make, which app do you choose, knowing that one is treating your data badly, the other one is safeguarding your data. So making sure you maybe spend a little bit more and go for the better app is one way of showing the market. But I also don't think that individuals should be in a position try to make these changes. So it really is a societal decision that we have to make collectively. So like one thing that I like is in your professional life, if like with whichever company you're in, encouraging that company to make better AI decisions is one better thing than your, which social media you're going to choose is an individual, much smaller. But like if you ask, you're a physician, let's say, and your hospital is acquiring an AI system. Ask them if this system has been through some responsible AI or AI ethics checks, and and say that we shouldn't use it at all in the whole company unless it has a audit or unless it has the answers, like the vendor provides you with the answers. And I believe this is actually a small but still a significant step, because a lot of the times AI companies are working towards enterprise engagements, right? Like a facial recognition company is trying to sell that system to big corporations, big law enforcement agencies. Okay, so you're a law enforcement agency. Ask them what is their third-party independent audit trail. Like making sure you ask these questions, because companies are the bigger buyers. And you're, as an individual, you do have a say within your company. You can make that happen much easier than like organizing something in your personal life. But ideally, of course, we should be thinking of this as in the policy level. Hence the importance of the people who are working in the policy field.
Yeah, but those are all moral dilemmas. For example, I pay subscription for ChatGPT, so I'm sending my money to OpenAI, and still I don't think that they are handling safety that well, and I'm their customer. I'm sending money to Meta, and I'm using Facebook ads to promote my courses, for example. I'm sending them money, and still I don't believe that they are handling misinformation on the platform wisely. So it's very difficult to like get rid of all those tools.
Absolutely. Yeah,
because
it is
like
very difficult.
For example, with social media, like what is better? Is better X or TikTok or Facebook or Instagram? Like
You're right. I mean, especially in cases where where the competition is sparse, and when the tool relies on the critical mass, right? Social media is one of those examples, because social media relies on how many people are there. So the bigger, the better, right? You cannot really have like a boutique social media.
That's right.
It beats the purpose. But it's not always like that's one type of problem. It's not, AI systems are not only those, right? Like when you think about right now we are very dazzled. We were very dazzled with social media, and now we are very dazzled with the generative AI, large language models. But trust me, there are so many predictive AI systems integrated into your insurance, your educational chances, your job search, your financial opportunities. These predictive AI models can come from boutique companies. They don't have to be in the same big five situation. So, and by fixing those, we could already have huge impact on what opportunities are available for anyone in the world, right? So there are different levels and types of problems, and we should be dealing with all of them. But some of them are, the solutions are a little bit easier for some of them, and we should not neglect them because we haven't solved them. Even the easier ones, we haven't actually put in place safeguards and mitigation methods for those yet. So let's make sure that we got the ones that we can fix. Let's fix them while we are dealing with the other ones as well.
So we have the US, then we have European Union, and then we have China. And obviously, I read some data that the most extensive number of Ph.D. graduates in the field of artificial intelligence, the highest number of Ph.D.s are in China recently. And I'm not sure whether China will use AI for a good of its own citizens and, let's say, Western democracies. So what to do with that? Because even though if we are able to regulate AI somehow meaningfully in EU or in the US, still there are countries that simply don't care.
True. True, although I wouldn't be too dismissive about, I wouldn't be too dismissive in characterizing companies as the good ones or the not so good ones, because history has not been so clearly dividing them. But what I would say is that the international political relations and international safety questions have always been there. I mean, we've worked through this throughout the whole nuclear war, nuclear conversations and so on. So, right, it's not new in that sense. Of course, it is new. Again, going all the way back to our beginning of the conversation, you can create AI much more easily than creating a nuclear power plant, obviously. So there are accessibility questions there. But I'm going to say, again, like division of labor, I don't do international politics, and I know there are extremely competent people dealing with power relations between countries and continents.
Right.
But I think labeling countries as good guys, bad guys, I don't think that has served us well.
Okay.
So let's just like, let's focus on
honestly speaking, like you definitely know that they are using AI systems to face recognize their inhabitants and things like that. So I think that still in EU in the AI Act, it's forbidden to use AI for face recognition. So I think that there are like some differences.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not downplaying that at all. But I think international politics is very complex, and the purposes, like how do you define how do you value the correct national use versus the correct international use, and how these powers come together. I wouldn't want to say that I, as a philosopher who works with companies and with AI models and with agencies that are, a hospital, a law enforcement agency, have the knowledge to be able to say how the international power play can be.
But it's very
so that's why I'm like, I
yeah.
don't know. I rather not answer because I just don't know.
Okay, it's valid. So thank you for being honest with that. Still, it's a very philosophical question, right? Because, for example, climate change, it also requires the collective act of many nations together.
Yes.
Because if only half of nations are switching to green energies and other half not, so we can't solve the problem. And AI safety is kind of similar.
Yeah, exactly.
In this way. So we need the collective act of all those nations.
Absolutely. So it is actually less of a philosophical question. It is a political science question, and it's an empirical question, and it is a question about how we do international politics. And you're absolutely right. Climate change is one instance of this. Nuclear capabilities were another instance of this.
Gene editing, probably.
I was just going to say gene editing is another instance of this, where we have to think about it as a collective world, like the global level conversation. And that everything that we talked about, like incentivizing individual players, now become even bigger in the with the global political structure. So it is even more complex, and I defer. I defer to those who are dealing with this question. Who have
I
expertise.
think that maybe those questions are more important than those answers. So
yes,
because
it's important. You're absolutely right. I think it's important to ask. It's very important to ask. Going back to like why we should vote. It's very important to ask, what does my government do with AI systems towards its citizens and towards outside, towards the in its international relations. Because as if you think about it from a human perspective, both of them matter, right? Not just how my government treats me, but how my government treats other nations, other citizens also matter. And we have to make sure that we have as much say as possible in all of these.
Okay, wonderful. So one last question, like if you have a magic wand and if you will able to build a new society that can somehow integrate AI ethically, so how you would build the future society? What would be those pillars of such a society? I'm gonna give the answer that I think you're not gonna like, because it's gonna be a little evasive answer. But you will realize the pattern that I'm going with. I believe in expertise, and I believe in putting the right expertise in charge of the right question. Okay.
So I think, especially coming from ethics, I think a problem that we suffer a lot is that ethics is so natural to us. We always, like, as humans, we talk about what's good, what's fair, what's bad, what hurts, what doesn't hurt, what makes us happy. All of these are ethical value questions, right? Like we talk about it so much that we often don't realize that this is also a discipline that we have methods and a huge body of knowledge, and it is not just about how you feel like, it's not just about your matter of taste, but there is a systematic way of doing ethics. In a similar way, as an ethicist, that's why I said like no to some of your answering to some of your questions. As an ethicist, I don't know the international politics, or I don't know how to structure the financial market in the correct way. And I would like to defer to experts in international politics and experts in economics for that. And so what I think if I had the option, I would like to put the right expertise in charge of the right question and make sure they collaborate.
Okay.
And this is hard even within a corporate level. So one of the things that I do in my executive education for the C-level and the executives, the leaders, is that I do a academic discipline bingo because I realize that they don't know which question to ask whom.
Wow.
You know, like you ask, for example, what is the right thing to do? And they're like, well, ask a sociologist. I'm like, no, this is a normative question. That question goes to philosophy.
Okay.
But if you want to ask what has been the behavior of this, like what has been the privacy sensitivities of this community, then yes, let's contact the anthropologist.
Okay.
What has been the social trends let's contact the sociologist. Like, let's understanding which group has the expertise and having them collaborate. And I think somehow we ended up, I'm giving you a very long answer, but also in the education system. So I'm in the university, right? There is this inclination towards interdisciplinary degrees.
Yeah.
We try to be everything. We try to be like, I try to know AI, know ethics, know econ, I need to know politics, I need to know design.
Honestly speaking, I'm trying to be like, because my background was complex system science.
Yes.
So I love to integrate all of these and be in the middle. So
integrate is one thing, but your expertise, what is your expertise? That's very important, because when I hire people that I can trust, that you know your economical analysis. But if you did one course in econ and one course in health and one course in ethics, how good are you in economic analysis? I don't know that, right? So I think going back to the society, we need to remember that we can have expertise and we can collaborate. Thank God we have the ability to speak. We have the language, right? Let's collaborate. Let's make sure that our experts do have their expertise, really have their expertise, and let's make sure they collaborate to answer the right questions. Don't ask an ethics question to a computer scientist. Don't ask a computer science question to an ethicist. We need to know each other's areas, but let's have our expertise. That would be my magic wand.
Okay, I really appreciate your opinion, because I believe that people should, let's say, be experts before they speak up. So I remember that I read an article on an idea that back then it was important to be like T-shaped, like one expertise, then like P-shaped, like two expertise, and common knowledge, like being a medical doctor / computer scientist, and the most innovation occurred in between domains, let's say. And I read or I was listening to a keynote about what they called shape, like many domains.
Yes, yeah.
So what do you think about it? Like, because sometimes I think that still we need those integrators. Like,
yes, of course.
For example, for leadership, as a CEO, I don't need to understand marketing, sales in detail, but I need to sometimes do decisions based on my team recommendation.
Yeah. But you probably should understand business and decision well, right? So when you say P-shaped, the pie, that's
two domains.
That to me sounds great if you have the stamina. Most of us do at this point, by the way, because we live longer. So like having an expertise in two fields is something that we tend to
By the way,
go
if
for.
I read your bio, you have also many expertise.
I don't say that. I usually call myself just a philosopher, because I know that that is something that in applied ethics, you can give me any question and I would work on it and I will have an answer. If you give me, I did health and ethics. But I would never call myself an health expert. And in the same manner, I prefer not to call myself, of course, an AI expert, because my colleagues who are doing fantastic jobs in machine learning, I mean, just because I know a little, no,
Yes,
absolutely
okay.
not.
I actually love your humbleness. This is so wonderful. If everyone is humble like you, we won't have that many problems.
Thank you. But yeah, so I think for certain tasks, as you said, like for example, as a CEO, I still think that having seen terrible CEOs, I have to say that
Really?
I would say you do need to have a very good understanding of something, even if that thing is understanding how business works. But that is not a negligible thing. And of course, being able to saying that you're an expert doesn't close you off to other fields. I collaborate heavily with many other fields, and I seek experts all the time, colleagues from different faculty all the time, because I will never spend my time thinking as much as they do on questions related to machine learning, questions related to user interface design, right? So their expertise is super important. But I need to be able to bring my own expertise, which is, well, okay, now you give me all of this information, let me work on the normative question. And that, I think, makes it a much stronger team, rather than I know a little bit of that, little bit of this, little bit of that. But okay, but who is solving which question?
Well, then I have the last question.
All
and
right.
That's my probably most favorite one. And I ask this question to all my guests.
All right.
And it's truly in your field, because it's about philosophy.
Okay.
No AI there.
All right.
And the question,
I feel the pressure.
Yeah. The question is like, according to your unique life experience, what is purpose of life, or what is your purpose of your life?
Yeah.
This is truly the deepest question for today.
Yeah. I'm gonna give like a two-level answer to this. I think so I'm a Kantian philosopher. So my philosophical approach is very Kantian. So I put a lot of value on individual autonomy and rational decision making. So from that angle, I do think that I see the world a lot like choose your own adventure. And you said it very nicely. You said from your unique life experience. Yes, you create your unique pathway in this choose your own adventure, and sometimes you create the new path as if you don't see the path you want to choose. And I think the beauty of life is there's always some interesting path and interesting puzzle that you create and you work through, and you gain different experiences through that path. And as you do that, of course, there has to be some things that you care about. Otherwise, it's just a game, right? Like it's just a wild game that almost like you're playing a video game. So what do you care about? And being an ethicist, I would say, if you care about, some people say, well, does it even matter? Does ethics even matter? And the way that I answer is like, look, if anything matters, ethics matters. You can't say nothing matters. But if anything matters, ethics matters. And for me, trying to answer the question is, what is the good thing to do? What is the right thing to do? And how can we create systems that are good and right? It fits beautifully to this choose your own adventure life, where you find the puzzle, you solve them, and you keep moving on, trying to create the best impact in the world. So,
yeah, like being a philosopher, it's very meaningful, right? So, and I really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you so much.
Me too. Thank you so
for
much
visiting
for having
me here in Singapore. And I wish you luck with your mission to
so
help
much.
companies or anyone to build like a more ethical AI.
Thank you so much. I don't know if you mentioned, but it's great to be back in Singapore. I did my PhD here at NUS in the philosophy department. So I always look for excuses to come back here. So thank you for adding to my experience in this visit.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And with you guys, see you at the next episode. Take care. Bye.